Hi, hello, namaste. My name is Marisa, and today we're going to talk about how to write your own letter of recommendation. Now, maybe you've never done this before, and if you haven't, this can be a real challenge. Perhaps you've never had to use academic language in this manner before, if you're writing it from your perspective of your professor, for example, or maybe you've not had to use this professional type of language as if it were from your boss, or maybe you've just never had to write about yourself in this way before, praising yourself, telling someone else why you are a good candidate. All of this can be a challenge, but I'm here to help you. I want to give you the tools to help you write your own letter of recommendation and write it well. In this video, we're going to go over three main things. The first section, we're going to just talk about how to get started. The second will be what important details to include. And the last will actually be common mistakes to avoid. So let's dive right in. How to actually get started. A lot of times when people, myself included, give others advice about getting started writing, one of the biggest pieces of advice you might receive is just start writing, which sounds really great, but ultimately isn't very helpful. I know that, so I want to give you some practical steps to actually get you started writing. So one thing I like to do when I'm starting to write a draft for anything is start with just the very basic building blocks of that draft, which aren't even full sentences. It's just thoughts and ideas. So what do I mean by that? I make a bullet point list of possible things to include. If I'm writing an article or something, I will just list out, okay, I might want to include XYZ details, ABC facts, whatever it may be. And then I go back after I've completed my list and I start deciding what to include and start shaping an outline, and then I actually start drafting. So first things first, making your bullet point list. Even that can be a difficult thing to get started with. So I would recommend asking yourself a couple of different questions to help guide you on creating that list. So first question, how does your recommender know you? In what context do you have a relationship with them? What time have you spent with them? For how long? How well do they know you? So you can think about those details because they would most likely include those types of details in the letter itself, right? If they were your professor, or if they were a manager, or if they were just someone in your department, those details matter. So go ahead and make that the start of your list. On a similar train of thought, what qualities or characteristics would they have picked out about you in the context they know you? Obviously, if there's something that's unique or interesting or whatever about yourself that you want to include, but there's no way that this recommender would have seen that thing, it probably doesn't make sense to include it. So along those same lines, when you're thinking about the qualities or the characteristics, the traits about yourself, that's basically another way of asking, what are your greatest strengths? So you can think about the different facets of yourself, your identity, your history, your specific experiences. What are some of the most unique things about you that you would want to include? If you're struggling with this one, or you don't really know where to go, maybe you've just really not ever thought about yourself in this way, there's something I would recommend. I would go to a trusted friend or a trusted colleague, and I would directly ask them this question. If you were describing me to someone else, if you were describing my best qualities or traits to someone else, what would you say? And then take note, listen to actually what they're telling you, because they're seeing you from an outside perspective. They're not you. They're not going to have the biased opinion that you have of yourself. We're all human. We can't help having a biased opinion of ourselves, whether it's good, bad, neutral, whatever. That's not the point. The point is we're all biased in some form. Of course, they'll have their own bias, but the point is they're not you, and they will give you insight into you, into your person that you may not have thought of already. So you can go to someone, ask a trusted friend, colleague, like I said, and see what they think about you, see what they would tell others about you. Another question that might be helpful actually is to ask yourself, what is the program you're applying to? What are they looking for in a candidate? What specific qualities, traits, characteristics, skill set, experience, background, what are they looking for? What do you have that they're looking for? That's another thing to include in your list. Now, once you've got this list going, you should have a pretty good size bullet point list at this point. You have to decide what you want to include and what you want to cut, because you can't include everything. You'll have a pretty lengthy list, and your letter of recommendation should not be very long. So you want to keep it a page, 2 pages. Typically these are single-spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman. That's a fairly standard. Margins, 1 inch all the way around. That's another pretty standard. I personally like to keep it to a page just because I think it's nice, neat, clean. And also when you are considering the academic committees and all of the admissions committees rather, and all of the data and all of the information and all of the letters and statements of purpose, everything they have to read, it helps to be brief. If you can be concise and eloquent, that's going to be to your benefit. So you have to pare down what things you actually want to include. Once you've decided, you cut the things that are irrelevant, not important. They may be great accomplishments, by the way. You may have tons, you may have an overflowing list, but you'll have to really decide what you want to include in this particular letter. Keep in mind, you also have your statement of purpose where you can write about yourself. So once you've decided what to include, what not to include, it's helpful sometimes to make a bit of an outline, or you can just go ahead and directly start drafting. But if you're making an outline, you'll want to think about, okay, what should I open with? What goes next? What follows that? Like kind of a logical story. For example, you may open with how they know you, because that would be a logical place to start. Most of the time, the details in the later paragraphs of the letter won't make sense without the context of how the recommender knows you. So after you have that outline, you can directly start drafting, and then we can move on to the next section. What important details to include? This is kind of an elaboration of the first step. This letter is about you. What is unique about you? What is special about you, or your circumstances, or your background, or your character, who you are? This is another way of asking, why are you awesome? And why should the university accept you? What will they gain from having you in their university? Again, this is your chance to advocate for yourself. Now, you're going to write your own statement of purpose. Of course, that's there. But if you are given the opportunity to write your own letter of recommendation, this is another chance for you to advocate for yourself, because if you are not going to make your own case, nobody else is going to. So you really need to talk yourself up, right? Because the admissions committee is going to look at this, they're going to hear it from this professor or boss or manager, their perspective, and take those words to heart. If you've made it this far, first of all, thank you for watching. This is actually my very first video, so good for you for being here. Good for me for being here. I'm glad to have you here. If you found any value up till now, it would be tremendously helpful for me if you like and subscribe, maybe comment, share this with friends. So kripya like or subscribe karo, dosto ko bejo, share karo. And if you have any questions or anything you want to ask me, comment karo or mujhse sawal pucho, and I will get back to you. Last but not least, common mistakes to avoid. You know what to include, you know what not to include, but there are also just some common mistakes that we want to avoid. So let's go over them. I'm going to go over 5, okay? The first one is not writing too informally. What do I mean by that? Your language that you use in this letter should reflect the person who's writing it, right? Your recommender. So it's going to either be a little bit academic or a little bit professional, but the point is it's not informal spoken language. It should hit that fine line of being formal, but also a letter and approachable. So don't write too informally. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is including unnecessary documents. Ultimately, this is a letter of recommendation. It's a letter. It does not need any document, like proof, citation, nothing. There's nothing else that needs to be included except for the words. So this is coming from a trusted professional in the field or your industry, and their word is going to go. There's no reason for them to need to include something that proves what they're saying. If they say you've done XYZ, then their words are going to be taken at face value that you've done XYZ. That's fine. There is no reason to include any proof, if you will, like a document or a certificate or something like that. So nothing else except the text that's needed. Third mistake to avoid, this kind of goes along with the second one, don't include unnecessary details, right? This is in the text, the actual content of the letter. So say that you like baking elaborate cakes, or you think you have the world's cutest pet. Great. These things are great. Good for you. But that doesn't belong in a letter of recommendation. Now, say that you're the captain of a sports team, like an intramural sports team. That's great too, but it probably doesn't belong in the letter of recommendation unless it's somehow used as an example, maybe of your leadership or of being a team player or of bonding with other people or holding them accountable, whatever it may be. But unless it's relevant to the rest of the letter, it doesn't need to be included. So the fourth mistake, being shy about your accomplishments. This is your time. Don't be boastful, but this is your time to really tell people what you have done, who you are, what makes you special, what makes you unique, and why you deserve and belong at that university, right? You're trying to make a case for yourself. So make your case. No one else is going to make it for you. This is your letter that you have to write. So ultimately, your words that you choose are what's going to go. Now, fifth, kind of going along with that, on the one hand, don't undersell yourself, but on the other hand, don't make up stuff. Don't lie. There's no reason to fabricate any extra details or make anything up that's untrue. You have accomplished things. I know it, you know it. You've accomplished things, period. There's no doubt about it. So take what you've accomplished and write that in your letter. Think about who you are as a person and write those details in your letter. There's no reason for you to make any other details up. Admissions committees want to know who you are, period. That's it. So don't lie. Just be yourself and that will be enough. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful and the information useful. Like I mentioned, this is my very first video, so please, if you feel so inclined, like, subscribe, share, do the whole bit. It would help me out tremendously. Good luck writing your letters of recommendation, and until next time.